I think in LA, it's hard. You've got to be a little bit flexible because the jazz scene is small there for electric players. You know, there's not so much work as there was. The venues are changing a little bit, but there is a good scene. I used to play, you know, with quite a lot with, like, I had a band with Mitch Foreman, keyboard player, and Smitty Smith. We had a trio, and then Mitch had a quintet. Scott Henderson, we had a band called the Nomad Trio or Nomad Quartet, either augmented with Mitch, and a great young drummer called Andy Sinisi. And that was like on and off for about 3 or 4 years. And then obviously Planet X, you know, the prog stuff. And then now it's more like, there's some of that, but it's more like you'll see the prog rock thing with, there's, you know, a band with Danny Carey from Tool in it, which kind of gets some attention. And there's one with Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, you know, that kind of rock thing, you know, in LA. So the jazz thing, the creative side of it, is more like some of the younger guys now, like the guys who graduated from schools in the last 5 years. They're actually creating kind of a cool scene. And it's the scene that's kind of, they're influenced by Snarky Puppy, you know, and maybe Kurt Rosenwinkel and Brad Mehldau and those, you know what I mean? Like it's not that Mehldau's young, I mean, young-ish, but, you know, it's like, it's sort of, Mehldau would be the elder statesman for them, for some of those guys, right? And I was doing a gig with a piano player, a great young guy who's, you know, kind of making a name for himself. And I mentioned Steely Dan, and he was just like, yeah, I know the name, but he'd never heard them, you know. And I was like, really? You never? Like, never? And he was like, no, you know. So I guess that's what's happening, is like, you know, that music that we probably grew up on, at least a bit, right, is becoming a little bit, you know, in the distance now. It's interesting. There's always people going to be better. I mean, there's always people that are faster, more technical, whatever, you know. It's more about like what you can bring to the gig. And I've sometimes noticed, I've been on gigs, you know, where, you know, there's a lot of good players in LA, where maybe there'll be a guy who's an incredible soloist who will sit in on a gig that maybe I'm in the house band and Calico, which is great. I love that, you know. I'd love to hear other guys. And I'll be sitting there, I'm like, God, this guy's really good. And not a lot of reaction is going on from the rest of the band. You know, maybe they're all on a break, and other guys are sitting there. I'm like, oh, so-and-so sounds killing, right? And they go, oh, yeah, man, he's cool. And I'm like, huh. And then it occurred to me that the next time I would play with these guys, they were getting off on stuff when it was more like the interaction thing. Not like, oh, I'm completely shredding on this, you know what I mean? But more like, oh, here's some cool shit to play under the piano player, and let's set this pedal thing up that's really tense. How long can we keep this D pedal going on whatever, you know what I mean? And how are we going to resolve it? You know, we did like an arrangement of Night in Tunisia, which is an old one of mine, and it has like a drum and bass feel on the intro. So it's like, you know, the old, right? But that's like, you know, everyone's heard that, right? So it was like, it goes like 1, 2, 2, that kind of thing, right? And then the bridge, you know, would be like double time swing, and so on, right? And it worked great, you know, and it's simple, but it's kind of cool, you know. And again, I remember doing this on a gig in LA recently, and the guys loved it, you know. And these are all like young cats, you know, they're like 20-something, and they're all really good players. And I'm like, oh, whoa, you know, and it kicked their ass. They loved it, and I'm like, great. It's like that's what. If I can bring that to a gig, I'd much rather be known for that than, oh God, that guy's really fast, really shreds on the beat. You know, that's a stupid, terrible thing to be known for. Honestly, no one's going to book you if you can he can play really fast. So really? If I hear that about a drummer, I would never hire them. It makes me scared, right? You want to hear that. You want to hear like he's got a great time, and he listens, and he's got a great repertoire. You know what I mean? Like he knows shit, you know. So, but then I've done pop stuff, you know, like really simple singer-songwriter things where, you know, the producer hasn't known, and I make a point of not telling them what I do, you know. I don't drop names about Scott Henderson or Virgil Donati. It's the last thing I would tell people. Because as brilliant as, I mean, Virgil's genius, you know, and as great as that music is, it can scare people. You know, people who don't understand it, you know, it's that thing. People are afraid of what they don't understand, right? And so when I've done the pop stuff, I'm very You know, I go in under the radar. You know, I did something recently for this young singer from Australia, Shelley Siegel. I think she's kind of taken off a bit. And her music was almost like a mixture of like Kate Bush, you know, Tori Amos kind of thing, with a, you know, her own kind of style, but definitely on the folk pop thing. And I just played, you know, it was like really simple, but I could kind of feel the direction she wanted, you know, and it worked really well, you know, and I want to be doing more of that, but it's almost a double-edged sword because, as you know, I'm sure, if you get known for being able to play more advanced things, people think that you can't or don't want to do the other things. And to be fair, some guys probably can't play that stuff that well, you know, because they've lost touch with it. But I mean, the stuff I listen to, and I've just been buying vinyl records the last day, and my vinyl haul from the last 24 hours was Van Halen, Diver Down. I got a late 60s pressing of Cream Disraeli Gears in mint condition, which I was very excited about. I got, what else did I get? Free at Last. I mean, Andy Fraser and Simon Kirke, it's like the underrated rhythm section of all time, right? I mean, talk about just pocket time, right? I mean, that drummer, it's just ridiculous. He's so good. And what else? Bowie, Changes, you know, I mean, great, right? So I'm not out there like searching like obscure fusion albums from Germany, you know what I mean? My listening now is like that and Van Morrison and Neil Young and Parliament and what else? Tower of Power, and just in the last year, Rolling Stones, the Beatles, but all on vinyl. I don't listen to stuff digitally at all, ever. So now I've got 1,500 records jammed in every crevice in my apartment, you know. And the thing is, I think if you listen to that stuff, even if, I'm never going to be the greatest Paul McCartney style bass player, you know what I mean? But I totally appreciate what he does, you know, and the fact that like there's one section on Come Together, I'm just thinking about this, where he just lets the note hold, like, and then one time I think he stops the note short, and it's so perfect, you know what I mean? It was probably just a mistake or it wasn't like a planned thing, but you listen back to it and you're like, oh, that's great. You know, just a little different, you know, that one note, it's just kind of obnoxious, just lets that, and his sound is super kind of boomy and woolly on it, you know. So I really, you know, I think probably people would be, I think they're less surprised because I post on Facebook about music a lot. But I do think it's important to not be sort of a snob about music, you know. People can get a little too much into the intellectual side of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, that I think you need to know shit, but you also need to be able to respond emotionally to it. And if you can dig Andy Fraser's bass playing and Jaco or Anthony Jackson, I think you're going to get more out of music and be a better bass player than if you're just a Anthony, you know, fanatic, for instance. You know what I mean?